The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman, for 5 minutes.
Well, I'd like to. I wish she was here. I want to say say wonderful things about her, and she ducked out. I'm glad we're having a hearing here dealing with crime. My district is adjacent to the city of Milwaukee, which in the last 3 years has more than doubled the number of murders. I don't know what the definition of hate means, but I would say normally if you're killing somebody, you probably hate them. I suppose they're just some people who shoot into a crowd or whatever. And I've always felt there were 3 things causing Milwaukee, which used to be the safest of the 25 biggest cities in this country, become such a dangerous city. And I think one, if we look at the type of people committing the crimes, is the breakdown of the family. And of course, we have people here who've stood with Black Lives Matter, who initially was opposed to that. Secondly, we have the police hatred. I think that's even more than the police defunding, but this police hatred where police have to be so careful about what they do, and as the result, they become passive policemen. I think that's one of the reasons why, not just in Milwaukee, but around the world, around the country, we've seen an increase in the number of murders. I guess a distant third would maybe be open borders. I noticed last month by itself we broke the previous record for the number of what they call gotaways at the southern border, going from 59,000 to 73,000. And obviously, when you have people who won't even turn themselves into the Border Patrol and go through asking for asylum, you're collecting people who are potentially dangerous. And as the result, we've gone from, I assume, some of this year, I think we've had 212 murders. I assume some were gay. I don't know. But I'm going to ask Mr. Lehman, am I right in each one of those 3 reasons for the huge increase in murders in this country? And is there anything you think we can do to deal with these 3 problems?
Yeah, I think locally to the 2-year increase in homicide, the second thing that you mentioned, the increase in passivity among police officers, you can call it what you want. You can call it criticism of the police. You can call it a blue strike. The reality is, across a variety of measures, police are less active than they used to be. Lawmakers have been very forceful in restricting police activity. Bans on chokeholds, bans on police chases. Again, the merits of those policies. The breakdown of the family is a long-standing problem.
Could you elaborate on that? I mean, I never think we talk about it enough here.
On the breakdown of the family is a long-standing problem. Yeah, 40% of American children 40% of American children today live were born out of wedlock. Many children will go through divorce, so nobody can really estimate how many. Of course, their parents' lifetime, marriage grows rarer and rarer. Fewer children have access to the stability of a loving 2-parent household, regardless of the sex of the parents. That almost certainly contributes to.
Can you give us some statistics on that?
On which number?
I mean, they're wonderful parents, and they're wonderful people, including in this room, who've come out of all sorts of backgrounds. But when I look at Milwaukee of say 1970 and Milwaukee of 2022, the change in the family situation. When I look at
I don't know the risk ratios, the exact numbers off the top of my head. I can tell you that risks for criminality are higher, risks for all sorts of antisocial outcomes are higher, risks for for harms to the individual are higher, risk for suicidality, risk for depression, all associated with particularly family breakdown. I think it's accurate. Again, I think it's a long-standing problem. Clearly, we've had a crime decline in spite of the decline of the family, but it is a contributor.
Yeah, but when I look at this guy in Colorado Springs, I mean, he sure had a very difficult background, and he was obviously a horrible person. But if we're looking at the root causes of stuff, how would you, given we've had this huge skyrocketing increase? How would you deal with that? Can you give us some ideas how society can get that 210 murders in Milwaukee back down to 40 or 50, which is still way too high?
Sure. Look, we know what the tools, we know the tools that work. It's not that hard. Tool one is incapacitation. The kinds of offenses that increased in 2020 concentrated among serious repeat violent offenders, people who commit homicides, people who engage in cycles of attributed violence, put them in prison. Incapacitation is really efficient. The second is, and I've alluded to this several times, we have far fewer police officers per capita than we did before the Great Recession. We need something like 50 to 80,000 more police officers to get back up to capacity. I think that should be a top priority at all levels of government.
It always bothers me when, I mean, you're here, you're our guest, I love it. It always bothers me when we talk about crime and people in your position just take the easy path to more cops. I wish you'd talk about more of some of the root causes too in the future, but thanks.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now